Greetings all, and welcome to Sprues. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at last week's winner of the next inbox review poll, and that is the Airfix 1/72nd scale Buffalo, or LVT, with a Willys Jeep. So, without further ado, let's have a look at this Airfix vintage classic. So, starting out as usual with the box, as you can see, we've got some classic Airfix artwork with a buffalo coming in onto a beach with all this barbed wire everywhere. And you can see they're letting off one of the Willys Jeeps with a full crew there, ready to man the machine guns. And there's also a lot of guns firing in the background and little flak bursts and sprays of bullets hitting the water there as more boats come in. And on this corner here, we've got another buffalo unloading another Jeep with a bunch of soldiers standing around it and a lot of flames going up into the air. So it's a very dramatic and beautiful looking little scene there. I believe this would have been one of Roy Cross's, but I'll correct myself if I'm mistaken. And then we've got the Airfix Vintage Classic sticker here, indicating that this is obviously an older kit. On the top, in usual Airfix form, we have a little bit of history about the subject. It mentions here that this landing vehicle was designed for the US Army and later used by the British Army. And this box also contains a 4x4 utility truck, which is the Willys Jeep there. Although usually associated with the Pacific Theatre, towards the end of World War II, LVTs were also employed in Europe. So unfortunately, we don't appear to have two schemes for a Pacific Theatre vehicle, but we do have a LVT Buffalo from Operation Varsity, which is a British one, in March 1945. And then we've got our colour guide, or what colours you should get from Humbrol's range, obviously mentioning that glue and paints are not included. And we have a skill level of 2, which is, probably quite reasonable for a small tank of this era. And if you're a member of the Airfix Club, there is a 1-hour flying token for this kit. Nothing on the back of the box, and on the sides we just have a repeat of the box art. And on the bottom, nothing more than the usual warnings. So I've previously opened this kit, and all of the plastic parts are out of the bag, but we'll have a look at those after we've had a brief look at the instructions to see how this one goes together. So these instructions are pretty typical for Airfix. We start off with a bit more detail about the history of the vehicle and some details about its specifications. On the inside page, we have some assembly instructions and a key guide, which is very useful, especially this section if you're just starting out, which is handy. And they're in the fold-out format, which I am not a fan of because it obviously takes up quite a lot of space, although you can kind of fold them over. Assembly starts with the hull of the vehicle here, and as you can see, there is a lot of wheels to do. You've got to assemble what looks like 2 individual parts for each of the wheels. It doesn't tell exactly how many there are, but there is 11 road wheels here. Plus we have the idler and the sprocket, and looks like some other wheel there for tension. Then on the inside we have some little pindle mounts by the looks of things for the various machine guns on this vehicle. And then you have to repeat that assembly on the other side right here. Moving on to step 3, we have a few bulkheads. We appear to have one here for accessing the front of the vehicle, which I think the engines were in. Plus we've got the cargo ramp with various details for the interior by the looks of things. Then we've got the forward driver's position, so we've got a armor plate that goes on the top there, along with a machine gun and looks like some various lights and other details, although it is a little bit tricky to see what everything is, as the quality of these instructions are pretty small and not the best. Looks like we've got the separate driver hatch and bow gunner hatch, along with a little vision port on the top. And we've got a massive 20mm cannon, I believe, is what this version is using, which goes on the back here. And finally, for the LVT, or the Buffalo, we have these little side skirts, which are probably best added in last, as we've also got the typical rubber band tracks. And we've got a couple more little things to mount on the side there with some extra details, and the 2 50 cals which go on the inside of the cargo bay. The last 2 steps in the instructions are dedicated to the Jeep, which looks like a bit of a more basic and older tool compared to what Airfix have done more recently, but it still looks like it's detailed enough. You've got a fair bit of assembly to do here, including adding the wheels and the transmission and drive shafts. Plus you've got individual leaf springs which have to be added onto these parts before you attach them to the chassis. And then for the body of the Jeep, we have this base piece with a part for the front there, the 2 side bits, a little bit of interior detailing including the 2 seats, a rear panel here, and we've got a spare wheel, jerry can, and a little windshield and the hood or the bonnet, depending on where you're from. There does also appear to be a driver here, although I'm not too sure if he's even in a uniform. He looks like he's sort of just got a random striped shirt on with a cap or a piece of hair or something like that, so he doesn't really look like he's in the military. So not sure how useful he's going to be, but we'll have a look at him when we get to the plastic bits. The last thing we've got, obviously, are the markings, and it's only the single scheme included, which is for the British Army, which, like I've said, is a bit of a shame because the LVT is a lot more famous for being in the Pacific Theatre, but some people, I'm sure, are a big fan of that, and I'm sure you could probably find some Pacific Theatre markings. But there's nothing too complicated, really. It's just a khaki drab Humbrol 159 for the Jeep and the LVT. And then you've got some gunmetal, coal black, and some matte rust for details such as the machine guns and the tracks. Seeing as we've got them here, we might as well have a look at these decals. But of course, these are updated and printed by Cartograph, so they're of pretty excellent quality. Not many decals, really. There's just this single one here for the front of the Jeep, as well as all of these for the LVT, including unit markings, the serial for the vehicle or something like that, and of course the usual Allied roundels. So as I've mentioned, the plastic parts are out of their original bag, although they would have all been in there together with a separate bag from memory for the clear parts here. So on this first sprue that we've got here, we have looks like the underside hull of the Buffalo or the LVT, and it looks like all of the bits and pieces for the Jeep, as well as the loading ramp there with some raised lines there for the detailing. On the inside of the ramp, looks like there's a few ejector pin marks and part numbers. I'm assuming that might be covered by another part, otherwise it's going to require a bit of cleanup to hide those imperfections, because they will be quite visible on the inside of the hull there. For the Jeep, we've got these side details here, which have they've got a fair bit of scratching and looks like a lot of imperfection to them, so they're not of great quality. And on the inside, unfortunately, they're also suffer from a lot of really nasty ejector pin marks, which will require a fair bit of cleanup. The chassis is also the same. We've even got stuff like this, which is not ideal. A lot of sprue flashing and ejector pin marks there. We've got our seats here, which also suffer from the same issue, so they're going to require a fair bit of cleanup. Same deal by the looks of things with the transmission. There's a lot of flashing, but for the most part, the details look okay. We've got our 20mm cannon here, but there is a lot of flash on it as well, and it's sort of bent. I might put that down to me having it out of the plastic bag, so not necessarily the fault of Airfix making it. The details on it seem okay, although there are a few areas where there are sunken marks here and there and a bit of flash. A few more bits for the Willys Jeep, again, going to need a bit of cleanup, but yeah, what details are there look decent enough. Not too sure what these parts are. I believe possibly mirrors for the LVT and some other little details here and there. All reasonably cleanly moulded. There are a few flash marks, especially on these mirror-looking pieces here, but for the most part, not too bad. And this looks like it might be our mount for the 20mm, and it looks like it's in pretty decent shape. This sprue here contains the side of the LVT, and it's not too badly done. There are a few nasty bits of flash and that to clean up, and on the outside we've got some raised panel lines, which might be better if they're recessed, but at least they've had a go at adding some detail on the outside. And the individual arms for the road wheels seem to have a little bit of detail on them, which is nice, even though I'm sure a lot of that will get hidden. On the inside, these parts I don't think would be visible, as there were some wall pieces, but yeah, they look okay. Got a fair few wheels here. It looks like about 12 or something on each side here. 11. I just counted and it's 11. And we've got what looks like one of our idler wheels, but it is pretty much made of flash, that part here. Also got a fair bit of flashing and imperfections on these smaller return rollers and suspension details. So again, not very cleanly moulded, but there are some okay looking details here and there. This piece appears to contain our 50 cals, which don't look like they've been very nicely moulded. They've sort of got a weird bulge and some strange shaping issues with this one. So I think I'm going to replace these with some 3D printed ones, as they're not of great quality and they appear to have gotten worse with age. Got some more panels here for the sides of the vehicle, and looks like our main driver's hatch area, and it looks like this is actually broken, so the plastic might be a little bit brittle. And on the inside, not really going to matter too much, but there are a few ejector pin marks here and there. And not too sure what this piece is. I'm assuming it's part of the interior of the hull there, but it looks, yeah, a bit of flash, but otherwise reasonably cleanly molded. On this sprue, we have, looks like another piece of the hull of the Buffalo and some side skirts. Not much detail, and again, a little bit of flash here and there, but nothing too major. And this appears to be our sole Jeep driver figure, and he appears to be a British Army soldier. I believe he's wearing the tanker beret, if I'm not mistaken, so yeah, looks reasonably appropriate dressed, although personally if I was driving a Jeep out of the back of a Buffalo onto a beach, I'd want to be wearing a helmet. But yeah, probably can do something with this figure. Of course, he's missing his feet so that he'll actually fit in the Jeep. Here appears to be the actual hull for the Buffalo, so not sure what this piece is. It might be an access hatch or a bulkhead or something like that, but this looks a bit nicely done. There's some raised hatches there for the vision ports and some nice holes there for lining parts up. And we have some pretty nice deep looking hatches for the driver and the bow gunner, all looking pretty nice. There's some recessed details on these panels here, but the rest is all raised. And then we've got what looks like another piece of the ramp with some hinge details on it, which look quite nicely done, really. We have another side hull piece, and this looks like it's a bit larger, so I suspect that they might line up like this, because I do believe the Buffalo is a little bit of a strangely assembled vehicle. But this piece got a fair bit of flashing and some nasty imperfections here and there. And again, there's some weird scratch marks on some of the plastic parts, especially here, and some bubbling kind of stuff there, so very unclean. But otherwise, it looks still quite usable with a little bit of cleanup. Got another side hole piece here, and the wheels for the Willys Jeep, which, yeah, they look pretty poor, so I'm probably going to try and 3D print replacements for those as well. Otherwise, I think it won't look very good. But we've got a few more extra details. Looks like some various return rollers and stuff for the Buffalo, the driver's steering wheel for the Jeep, and some pindles or some sort of mounting system for the Buffalo. And looks like our leaf springs aren't in too bad a shape. Again, all of these bits have a fair bit of flash, and on these wheels especially there's some very nasty ejector pin marks, but otherwise nothing too bad. We have the chassis for the Jeep, which appears to have come off of its sprue, and it's not too badly done. It's basic and of its time, and there is a lot of imperfections and stuff that might need to be cleaned up, but with a bit of work you might get a decent looking little Jeep out of it. Got our sprocket wheels, which have some very nice crisp detailing to them, and they appear to be some of the cleanest molded in this kit, which is nice. Our smaller wheels here are not. There's a lot of flash on those ones, and we've got a few other little accessory pieces here which have a lot of flash on them again, and our Willys Jeep front there. And we've got our hatches here for the bow gunner and the driver with a few imperfections that might need to be cleaned up, especially on the underside if you're going to have the hatches open. And we have a nice little jerry can there with a little strap on it, which, like the sprocket wheels here, is actually surprisingly cleanly molded and quite crisp and detailed. The last two bits of the green plastic we have are just another of those side hole bits for the Buffalo. It's same story, lots of scratches and imperfections that will need a bit of cleanup, but otherwise still probably quite usable. And of course we've got our clear sprue here, which I sort of looked at earlier, and it's got these little lights, which I believe are for the Jeep, as well as the windshield, and it's pretty thick plastic with a fair few scratches and a lot of ejector pin marks on it, so gonna need a fair bit of cleanup. But I suppose you could always build the Jeep without the windscreen if you wanted, or glue it in the down position so it's a little bit less noticeable. The last bit of kit we have here is the rubber band tracks, and they're pretty atrocious, and I'm pretty sure that this is how they came, and not a reflection of it being unboxed earlier. There's chunks taken out of it that are pretty deep, and a lot of imperfections and excess rubber mold on the bits here and there. Probably be 3D printing replacements for these, just because I reckon they are so delicate. As soon as I put a bit of tension on them, they're going to break and rip up, and I'll end up having to use 50 staples just to get them to go together. And honestly, they are pretty basic, although it would have been pretty tricky, I think, to get a decent rubber band mold of the LVT or the Buffalo's tracks, as they are quite unique. So that pretty much wraps up our look at this vintage Airfix kit. Now, I've probably been a little bit harsh because, as the box says up here, which I should have probably mentioned, it is a tooling from 1965. So considering that, I think they've done a pretty excellent job, really. For the day and age, there's some really good details and some very cool features. Unfortunately, though, obviously with age, the tooling quality has deteriorated, hence why we have all of those imperfections and flashing, which is not ideal. In terms of pricing, as you can see, I paid $24.95 Australian dollars for this one, which I think, yeah, it's pretty reasonable. You do get 2 vehicles in this kit, and I don't think there are any other LVT kits in 1/72nd scale now that I think about it. So it's not the best kit, but it is kind of one of the only options here. I'm planning to do mine in a Pacific Theatre scheme and probably get some Airfix Marines and fill them up there instead of using the questionable older tooled Jeep. It's still kind of cool that they explored the British Army option and mentioned a more obscure theatre of operation for this particular vehicle, although, like I keep saying, would have been nice though if they included Pacific ones as well. I do believe a few modifications will be required, so I will probably have to 3D print some different bits and pieces to make it the Pacific version, and I probably will, like I've said, 3D print some replacement tracks. If you're interested in doing one of these interesting looking vehicles, then why not? Other than needing a fair bit of cleanup, it should hopefully build into a decent enough kit. And even though it's basic, I'm still looking forward to having a go at this one and hopefully coming up with something that looks pretty cool. So that's it for this video. I do hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel, as that really helps out. Also, a massive thank you to my wonderful patrons for helping me to fund not only buying these kits, but also the products and tools I use to make them. All things going well, there'll be a second video on building the Revell Horton 229 coming out this weekend, so stay tuned for that one. Otherwise, it might just be this one for this week, but there'll definitely be 2 next week. I may also have a poll up this weekend as well, so check out the community tab for that one, but otherwise, thanks again for watching this video, and as always, take care, and until the next one, model on.